I don't think people set out to intentionally ruin their own finances. I mean, you could probably intentionally set out to ruin somebody else's finances if you were maybe a scam artist or something. So when I came across this article, I thought it would be very interesting to read or discuss, and I thought maybe it'll open up some interesting conversations. It's called 12 Ways You Can Ruin Your Finances in Your 40s. Now, I don't necessarily think it's just your 40s that some of these apply. However, I am knocking on the door of 40. I'm 37 and a half, so I'll be there soon. Maybe I can learn a thing or two, but I think any age can probably learn from this. Let's see what this article has to say. But if you are new here, my name is Jennifer, and on Money Article Mondays, we pick a blog or an article related to money and we chat about it. I think we have learned a lot from some of the articles, and they've definitely opened up a lot of interesting conversations. I also make videos on saving money and living a simple life. We are documenting our journey to paying off our mortgage by the year of 2024 and ultimately being financially independent. So if any of that interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So this article I found on MSN.com, and it was by Ben Walker. 12 Ways You Can Ruin Your Finances in Your 40s. It says the worst money mistakes people make in their 40s. You may have lofty financial goals to hit by the time you're in your 40s or before you reach your 50s. These goals could involve maxing out your 401k or having a sizable savings for an emergency. Whatever you're trying to achieve, it's important to avoid common financial pitfalls along the way. That's why I think some of these pitfalls could be for any age, so it's not necessarily for the 40-year-olds. It says to avoid these pitfalls, you need to take action. Making the right money moves in your 40s could set you up for financial success. Are you kidding? I mean, we could all look back at our 20s and probably make better financial decisions, and we would be much better off by the time we were 40. But you know, the 20s are for learning and making mistakes and screwing up and that kind of stuff. So let's see what these 12 pitfalls are. Number 1, failing to plan for retirement. Yes, you know why you should plan to retire? Because at some point you're going to need to retire because you either won't want to work anymore or you physically can't work anymore. So unless you're going to depend on, I won't even say the word because YouTube doesn't like certain words here. Unless you're going to depend on somebody else to take care of you, then you got to plan for retirement, right? It says saving for retirement takes dedication and hard work, but above all, it takes a plan. I don't think this is hard to do. I think you set it up and it kind of works on its own. It says you can't expect to reach retirement age and have a nest egg waiting for you if you never planned to save money. Instead of hoping for the best with retirement, which I see some people do. I see some specific people actually have 401ks and borrow from them, go on vacations, pay them back, borrow from them again, go on another vacation, pay them back. Yeah, it's not a savings account, right? That you can just dip into when you feel a little spicy and want to go somewhere. No, it's a long-term thing. Basically, you need to imagine your money disappears into thin air until you retire, right? Ignore the money. Put it there, have it automatically come out, and just watch it. Just watch it. Watch it from way back here saying, oh, yep, it's in a savings account so far away, like 40 years from now, far away. Can't touch it, just gonna watch it, see how it's doing. The second pitfall is investing too little. Knowing how to invest doesn't mean you have to be an expert at the stock market. It says, though, that wouldn't hurt. Of course it wouldn't. But it does mean that you should know about your investing options. It says, be aware that investing too little into something will likely have a very little impact. Yeah, you need to know how much you need to invest in order to get to wherever your goal is, and then probably whatever that amount is, go ahead and prepare for it to be more that you'll need to put in there because inflation. The article says, for example, putting $1,000 in a traditional savings account for a child's future college fund 10 years down the road may not be the best investment option. You think? At the national savings interest rate of 0.05%, as of December 9th, 2020, you'd end up with about $1,005 after 10 years. You would make $5. Let that sink in. So yes, some people may be scared of the stock market, of retirement plans, but your money is not even going to keep up with inflation if you depend on just sticking it into a bank savings account. The third money pitfall is investing too much money. Let's see what it says about this, because can you really ever save too much or invest too much? I guess if you invest everything you have and then you don't have anything left over, like an emergency savings or a regular savings account, just for a rainy day, that money that doesn't matter if it reaches, inflates or anything like that. Yeah, because if an emergency comes up, you don't want to have to dip into retirement. This says investing too much can also be a problem. You typically shouldn't touch the money you've invested for many years, depending upon the investment. Otherwise, you may have to pay certain penalties or fees, like when withdrawing funds early from a retirement plan. Yes, you pay more. You pay 30 to 40% in fees and taxes and stuff. You lose so much money. It says, so if you have too much money invested, you may not have liquidity. So what is liquidity? Money that you can get to now, where you don't have to pay fees or anything, or it's not tied up for a certain amount of years. Money that's liquid. Now, there's also something called somebody's net worth. Somebody could have a net worth of $1 million, but that doesn't mean their net worth is liquid net worth, meaning they have $1 million in the bank right now that they could use. It could mean that they have $500,000 in a retirement account that they can't touch for 20 years without penalty. Their house is worth $400,000 and they have $100,000 in savings. That could be how they're a millionaire. But if you think about that, then the only amount of liquid that they have is $100,000 in the savings. This says that you want to avoid early withdrawal penalties. Yes, but if you need money on hand to cover necessities. Your best bet is to find a good balance between investing to make a difference and having cash in an emergency fund. Well, make sure that emergency fund is in place and looks healthy before you think about other stuff, really. An emergency fund is just fundamental. It's one of the most important pillars of financial freedom or financial independence. If something happens and you're on your way to paying off debt or trying to reach whatever money goal it is, if an emergency comes up, such as medical, or you get laid off, or something such as, your roof falls in and it's not covered by insurance, then you need that money, or you're going to end up going into debt and it's going to set you back even worse. The third money pitfall is not teaching your kids about money. Yeah, not teaching your kids about money could cause a lot of problems for you in the future when they come back for more money from you. Whether we like it, money is an integral part of our daily lives. Yes, money is not evil or good. It is neutral. It is whatever you treat it as. Money can do good and money can do bad, depending upon how you use it. The person holding it uses it. So, for example, it's a tool. A hammer is a neutral object. It can do good, it can do bad. It can nail a shingle into a roof, which is good. It can hit out the front windshield of somebody's car, which is bad. It is the tool. So money is not inherently evil. It is how you use it. So teaching your kids about money, talking about money is not evil. It is not, it shouldn't be shamed. It should be discussed. It says having a good financial foundation of financial knowledge can go a long way in improving your overall quality. The fact that financial standards are not required in the majority of public schools is ridiculous. This is something you use every single day. Algebra is not something you use every single day. History is not something you use every single day. So why isn't normal banking, retirement, budgeting, financing required as a part of regular school. Please let it happen. Please let it happen and be required. Number 5 is very important. This pitfall is avoiding estate planning. Oh, I don't have any money, so I don't need to plan my estate. Estate planning is only for really rich people who have lots of assets. No. Estate planning involves planning for what happens with your property after you die. You'd hope this situation would be a long way off from any age, but simply hoping for something doesn't stop it from happening. This is something we put into place before our daughter was born. We knew at that point that was our decision to make sure our wills were in place, what we were going to do with financial power of attorneys, healthcare power of attorneys, guardianships, what we were going to do with trust to set up, what would happen to monies, to life insurance. That is when we really sat down. And now we reevaluated that. We did it very simply the first time. We went probably late last year, middle last year, to a actual different attorney who is an estate planning attorney. And I assure you, it does not mean estate planning is not just for people who are wealthy. Absolutely not. It's people who have any assets whatsoever, small, medium, large, depending upon your assets, depending upon what your estate plan is going to be. But it is something worth the investment, worth the peace of mind. And we learned so much when we actually went to a professional who does this every day, who sees different scenarios. We had thought we were going to be doing, this plan, this plan, and this plan. This is what we wanted to do. But he opened our eyes up to some things and some other ways of looking at things that we had never even considered, that made so much perfect sense. And just kind of, it was the best thing we could do. I went off on a tangent there. Let's see what this says. This says is you can't start estate planning too early of an age. But getting started with planning in your 30s and finishing up in your 40s is a good idea. It's especially important if you have children or other dependents, because you want to make sure inheritance, property, money, and other assets are distributed properly. Otherwise, you have a court deciding what happens to your things. And I would prefer to decide what happens to my things, what happens in place for my child, rather than a court, honestly. Let's just go there. Not my favorable, not a good idea. Not a good idea. Number 6 is one we previously talked about, dipping into retirement savings. Don't do it. Put your hand out. Let me smack it. Put your hand out. No, don't do it. Don't touch it. Again, imagine the retirement savings, okay? It's in a bank, but it's not 40 miles away. It's like 40 years away, okay? You can't get to it. It's just there. It's got like a ticker, like the Powerball or the Mega Millions, and you get to see how it keeps growing or goes down or grows. But it's just a teaser because you can't touch that money. Don't touch it. This is your retirement savings exist for one reason and one reason only: to help you live the life you want when you are retired. Of course, it's your money and you can do what you want with it, but it would typically be a bad mistake to dip into your retirement savings early. Listen to this. The penalty before withdrawing funds from a traditional IRA or employer-provided retirement account before the age of 59 and a half is 10%. So if you withdraw, and that's the penalty, that's not the taxes. So if it's a Roth, it's already prepaid taxes, but if it's a IRA or 401k that's not Roth, then you also have to pay taxes. So if you withdraw $10,000 early, you'll lose $1,000 of it. That's too much money to walk away from. It's more than 10%. It's upwards of 30 to 40%, if I'm not mistaken, because of the taxes. The 7th money pitfall is buying too much for your kids. Having kids often brings on a whole slew of additional expenses you may not even have been prepared for. I was just having this conversation today with some people who have 2 kids, and we were just chatting. I was like, are you guys settled at 2? And the thought is, yeah, we're settled at 2. Not just the work that kids are, and they're the most beautiful blessing. Trust me, they are the most beautiful blessing. But kids are expensive, and you'll never know until you have one how expensive. I mean, daycare, oh my goodness. I had somebody recently on my channel ask me how to budget, and it broke my heart because honestly, I don't know how to do budget for this. She has twins, and she was going back to work, and having to put them into daycare was going to be $32,000 a year. Daycare is insane. It's the majority of the time people end up realizing that it doesn't behoove them to go to work because their income after taxes, they end up breaking even or barely. They're just going to work in order to put their kids in daycare. It is super sad. I know when our daughter was in daycare for the first year, she was just part-time, and we actually found a pretty good deal. But she was in there, I think it was 3 days a week, and it was $700 a month, which is still expensive. And this was 4 years ago. Kids are expensive. She had a milk allergy, dairy allergy or something, so to formula. And she had to have this special formula that was $380 a month total to cost, the cost of it to feed my child, which of course I would do. But honestly, I mean, you look at that, those 2 things together, you've got daycare and you've got formula, and you're over $1,000. You're not talking about clothing, any other feeding or doctor visits or anything else like that. They're expensive. But this article says as they get older, you get more used to what kind of money you expect to spend on your kids, but it can still be difficult to control. So this is talking about additional expenses, not just the cost of, having a child. This is talking about spoiling kids maybe, or indulging kids. This is especially true if your kids start to want pricier things as they grow up. Well, isn't that what happens? The gifts get smaller and the costs get bigger. The simple toys they loved as toddlers are soon replaced by video games, smartphones, and other expensive electronics. And the cost quickly adds up. Buying too many of these things your kids can put a serious dent in your finances. Especially, there's always a new toy or gadget. I haven't gotten to this point, everybody. As far as my daughter's 4.5, I'm not to the point where, the things that she wants are expensive. For her birthday, she wants a fish. Does anybody have any advice on that? What kind of a fish I should get? What's easy to take care of? What's a good fish? Should I get her a fish? I don't know. But as far as not just gifts, I think, but people are I think that people are also overspending on their kids to make themselves feel better. And I see this in the case of like birthday parties. They're seeing birthday parties with some of these vloggers. They always have these huge things with princesses and with bounce houses and with catered. And I think it's unnecessary. And the kid does not care. It's almost as if it's more for the parent than it is the kid. So that is a huge thing. And then the kids are going to expect it every single year. What are you going to do if you're put in a situation like 2020 and you're laid off and now your kid's extra depressed because he usually has this big bash and he can't, or he doesn't? I think setting the right expectations, but again, this is one that I've got to make sure, I stay on top of and I am conscious of. So if you guys have any tips on this, then definitely let me know down below. Number 8 is something that can be kind of awkward. Avoiding money conversations with parents. It may seem strange to have a money conversation with your parents when you're concerned about their plans, but it's often something that needs to be done. You need to at least know, oh gosh, it's still awkward, right? Where they are as far as, they may be more private where they don't want to tell you all the details, but you need to make sure that you want to make sure they are set up, right? They've done an estate plan. You want to know where the things are that you need to get to when something happens, or if something happens and they go into the hospital and their bills still need to be paid, as far as their electricity and gosh, there's a whole host of things when they get to that age. But this says some parents have planned their future and they're all set covering, everyday costs and their health care during retirement. However, if your parents aren't completely set financially, you'll need to discuss with them how they're going to pay any costs that come up. You may need to end up helping them if you're in a position to. Having this conversation early can help you prepare for potential financial burdens. So when we talked about earlier, you preparing for your retirement and how much money you need to have, well, if you're 60 years old and you're 69 years old and you're retiring and your parents are 89 years old, what if they need help? Then the amount that you thought you needed is going to be more if you plan on helping them out or you're in a position to do so. So kind of knowing if they are going to be good or aren't going to be good and what the plan is if they aren't is important, definitely. Number 9 is not keeping an open mind about mortgages. What does this have to say? Taking out a mortgage is a big step for anyone because it typically involves tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. It usually involves more than $100,000 in debt, not just tens. It's exciting to buy a new home and you want to get the loan process done as quickly as possible so you can move in, but you need to keep an open mind about mortgages. Shop around, find the best loans. Getting even a small decrease in your interest rate can make a huge opportunity in savings. Also, can make a lot of sense to refinance your mortgage later. Oh my goodness, I made a whole video on how we refinanced our mortgage. So we went from a 30-year to a 15-year. I won't talk about it again. I'll link it down below, but it made a world of difference. But yeah, getting a mortgage, people who just willy-nilly go out and get a mortgage or get a car loan and don't do any research behind it or trust the mortgage professional without looking into it themselves, you need to educate yourself. Don't just trust a professional, even if they're friends or family. You need to understand what you're doing. If you're investing or going to be spending $300,000 to $400,000, even $200,000, even $50,000, heck, you need to understand what you are doing and making sure that's the best decision. We have 2 more pitfalls to go over in this article. Number 11 is letting lifestyle creep take over. Does anybody know what lifestyle creep is? It's where you make a little bit more money and now you need a little bit more, and now you make a little bit more money and now you need a little bit more, and you always wonder back, well, if I made this amount of money, I'd be set. But then somehow you made that amount of money and you still were in the same financial position. It's called lifestyle creep. This is if your income is good and you don't have many expenses, it's tempting to spend your extra money on something you don't need. As you spend more money on non-essential items, they become part of your lifestyle and you get used to them. They may even become necessary in your mind. So things like this could be always having a new vehicle or always having a brand new pair of tennis shoes, or I'm sure you guys can think more of, or I need to have a monthly massage. I have to. It's a requirement. It's not a negotiable. That is what an example of like the lifestyle creep. This says getting used to spending more on an inflated lifestyle is called the lifestyle creep. It's not necessarily a bad thing when you're earning a lot of money, but that might not always be the case. You could lose your job or get into retirement and suddenly realize your income can't sustain your lifestyle. Heard that before? Instead of falling prey, use your extra funds to put away savings and investments for your future. I think there's a fine line, and I've talked about this in other videos, between extreme frugality and being frugal-ish. I think there's a good common middle where you can be frugal, save your money. You can lead a simple lifestyle, still enjoy life though. I mean, don't be so hardcore and extreme. Still do things, but don't think just because you get a raise or you're making more money that it's an opportunity to spend. That, oh, now I make $200 extra per month, so that means I can go out and get that jet ski because the payments could not be more than $200. That is the kind of thing you have to watch out for. Some people ask on my channel why we can put so much money towards our mortgage payoff, and that is because we live on what we used to make 10 years ago, and everything more that we make now goes towards our mortgage. That's how it works. And the last one, number 12, is not having an emergency fund. We talked about this earlier. Have an emergency fund. Now, this is a fund that you also don't touch. It's just money sitting there until an emergency comes up. Now, an emergency is not my air conditioner went out. Yeah, I've got the money to fix it, but I just don't want to fix it because that's annoying. I'm going to go buy a new car. Or, yeah, I've got that. This is an emergency. What? I need a new pair of jeans. No, not an emergency. What is an emergency? Let's discuss this. Life is uncertain at times, which can mean you could end up with unexpected expenses. I don't know about you, but every single month there are unexpected expenses. I'm going to talk about this one on my next financial update, but week before last, I ended up spending about $1,500 in the matter of 0.1 seconds. What did I do? Well, I backed out my vehicle of the garage before the garage door was fully up. Yeah, even I make dumb mistakes. I am normal, just like everybody else. The damage to my car was $941. The deductible is $1,000, so didn't reach the deductible. The damage to our garage door was, I think, $425. The entire bottom panel had to be replaced. So within the matter of minutes, I spent almost less than a half of a second, I spent $1,500. That basically was just wasted money. And I had this moment where I just thought, you know, the moment when you are dreaming and you get in a wreck or something, you damage your car and you're like, oh, it's a dream. It's cool. I'm going to wake up. I had that moment, but that is a situation where, not that that's an emergency, which it wasn't, because my car it's just cracked. The garage door still shut. Everything was just fine and dandy. But those are the kinds of things that are unexpected expenses that seem to always, kind of just happen during a month and during a budget. But this says that whether it's a car accident, whether it's your fault or not, or you just weren't paying attention, like me, your washing machine needs repairs or a tree branch hits your window. You need to have money on hand to take care of those things. As you build your emergency fund, consider how much money you will need enough to tide over you in emergency. Now, over the last year, the standard that everybody had talked about as far as what an emergency should be, which 3 to 6 months of living expenses for the longest time is what people said. And what that means is whatever your monthly expenses are, not your income. Let's say your income is $4,000 a month, but your expenses are $3,000. It's your expenses. So if you want to save up 3 months worth of expenses, then you would end up saving $9,000 for your emergency fund. But over the last year, people have kind of come to the realization or think that that needs to be more like 9 to 12 months of an emergency in place. So I've seen even some people who will squirrel away an entire year's worth of their salary. So let's say you've got a couple and they make $80,000. They will squirrel away as an emergency fund $80,000. Now, is that necessary? I don't know. It's completely up to you. Everybody has their own comfort level, and you do what your comfort level is. But you do I would definitely recommend a minimum of 3 months. Gosh, if something happens, hopefully you can get back on your feet within 3 months. You never know, but at a minimum, maybe. This says that the amount of money you need is up to you, but you can start with any amount and slowly add to it. Start small. $500, $1,000. Slowly add to it as you can, but make it a priority to do so. This says, keep in mind that your emergency fund is only for emergencies, so don't be tempted to use it for anything else. Otherwise, you won't have money when you actually need it. I hope you enjoyed this video on the 12 ways you could ruin your finances in your 40s. Like I said at the beginning, I think that a lot of these can be applied to any age, really. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you back for more videos.